It's the enemy from within, all the scum that we have to deal with that hate our country. That's a bigger enemy than China and Russia.
This is part 2 of the Enemy Within series, The Academy. To remind everyone, the words Trump used when defining the enemy within recently were sick, radical lunatics who were bad people. Now, he didn't say those words in that order, but those are the adjectives he used. He was not talking about those who don't like him or don't agree with him or don't vote for him. If you hear that, it's because the media is spreading the lie that came from the Harris campaign. That is what Harris and Walz is telling America Trump said. This video will talk about how the enemy within has captured our universities. So first, let's talk about who's teaching at the universities in America today. As you can see, 90% of teachers are Democrat. And I don't mean the old Democrat Party. I'm not talking about the JFK Party. I'm talking about the new Democrat Party. These are the Democrats led by Kamala Harris who believe free speech is dangerous and should be censored by the government. They believe war is good and spending billions for it is our duty. They believe in open borders and limitless budgets to pay off any constituent group they can find. Just recently, Ms. Harris announced she wants to give a gift to the black men. It's actually a long list that would total up into the $20 to $30 trillion mark. Now, that would be okay with me if she was buying the gift, but she isn't. We are going to buy the gift so that she can give it to black men in the hopes more of them will vote for her. So, 90% of these Democrats are teaching. And notice, donations to Democrats represent 95% of all the money coming from the Academy for political donations. With that kind of connection, the question becomes, how does this play out in terms of actually teaching in a classroom? Well, it's not too good. According to this poll of more than 1,100 teachers, 37% identify as very liberal, 45% identify as liberal, and just 16% identify as moderate on the Harvard campus. A whopping 0% identify as conservative. The old academy was about bringing young minds together so they could learn all about the issues of the world from many different perspectives, which would broaden both their knowledge and understanding of the world around them. Then with that knowledge and from their personal perspective, they could learn how to navigate through life as they entered whatever profession they were studying. However, with the bias being so strong in one direction, that is not what the new academy is doing. According to this AP article, many Americans don't believe conservatives are on an even playing field. Almost half of the adults polled say liberals can speak their mind on campus. Only 20% believe conservatives have the same privilege. But that should scare all of us. This bias is showing up in some very distressing ways. It is actually being built into the system. This article from Newsweek points to one of the insidious ways campuses crush conservative speakers. Student clubs are advised to link with campus offices or campus centers when they want to sponsor a speaker or an event. However, the student offices and centers are rife with DEI folks. As you might guess, these folks are not too enthusiastic about supporting conservatives. If the people working in these offices support Palestine, for instance, students who want to hold a pro-Israel event won't get too much help. Pro-life folks would have to ask a student center filled with pro-abortion people to help out. It probably wouldn't go too well. The article cites one specific example in which Princeton's Gender and Sexuality Resource Center not only declined to help a student group wanting to bring a conservative feminist speaker on campus, the Resource Center organized a protest against that very speaker. So, and when conservative speakers do come, they fall victim to the students who have been taught by biased teachers. Watch this.
Former collegiate swimming champion Riley Gaines is threatening legal action against San Francisco State. She says trans activists at the school assaulted her Thursday night after she voiced her opposition to allowing athletes who transition from male to female to compete against women. She tells Tucker Carlson what happens next.
All of a sudden, after my speech, the room was stormed. The lights were turned off, and I was rushed with no one there to escort me to a safe place. I was punched, I was hit multiple times, I was shoved, until finally we exited the room.
Gaines had to barricade herself inside a classroom for 3 hours, and she says the protesters demanded ransom if she wanted to make it home safely. A university official said she was proud of the students who protested peacefully. Gaines replied that ambush was the opposite of peaceful.
I don't know if you've heard at the end, an official from San Francisco State showed support for the peaceful protesters rather than support for the young woman who had the courage to speak her truth despite those protesters. And as you heard Riley say, being locked in a room for 3 hours is not really peaceful. Now, I'm sure San Francisco State has organizations on campus designed to support young women. However, when the rubber hits the road, it seems that their support goes to the mob. It would appear the bias is turning into activism. At one university several years ago, students were given class credit to protest the Kavanaugh appointment hearings. Now, on a side note, I want you to think about the irony of this. So 6 years ago, we have a university professor and her students, I don't know how many, looking to crush Kavanaugh because they were standing for women's rights. Fast forward 6 years to today, and those same people would have most likely been protesting against Riley Gaines, who came to a university to protect women's rights. More recently, students at UC got a grade for showing up at a protest. Universities are no longer teaching, they're training their students to be activists. And these activists are turning up in businesses. Can anyone out there say Bud Light? Sometimes these so-called professors become the activists. This video may be a little tough to watch. It's a Trump supporter on a woke campus, UC Berkeley.
Filming you. Oh, I'm gonna hurt you. You have a mask on.
Oh, shit, he's bleeding. Yo. Hey, man. He's bleeding. Hard. Yo, he's bleeding bad.
You just saw an example of the sick, radical lunatics that Trump talked about. These are the people Trump is talking about. He hid in a crowd. Then he does this sneak attack on some innocent guy with a bike lock and a chain, cracking his skull. And then he scurries back into the crowd using his anonymity to protect him. Fortunately, the guy was identified. Meet Eric Clanton. You may be thinking he's some radical student that feels it is his mission to stop Bad Man Orange, and you're almost right. As it turns out, he's a college professor. This sick lunatic had classrooms of students. I'm sure they all got a really balanced education. Now, to be fair, as you saw, some of these people are having some kind of consequences. Now, Clanton, I really disagree with this. All these counts of felony charges, and he gets probation. But that part is because, along with universities, our justice system has been captured as well. I will talk about that in another video. Even though some of these sick people are being removed, they represent just a small percentage. Most of them are not. Professors across the country are training our children. Last year, America got a real look at how successfully professors have trained their activists. We got a taste of it after Hamas raped and pillaged Israel, murdering citizens and kidnapping citizens last year on October 7th. This is Harvard. Now, I'm an old man, but when I was in high school, Harvard represented our best. If you're over 50, you may also remember those days. This is our best now. Here is Columbia University last year after the onslaught of Hamas terrorists. Remember when they occupied campus buildings and green spaces, telling us how oppressed the Palestinians were, even though it was the Palestinians who had elected Hamas, who then went on their murderous spree? Remember that? These students did exactly what their professors had trained them to do. After months of violent protests, it appeared some schools were making some progress. However, fast forward 1 year, and at Columbia University we have this. Now, I just read this headline yesterday. I'm not sure of the pronunciation, but it appears Shai Davidai was harassing people. I went to his X site and found this one video. I think it's the video they were talking about, because in an article, Shai was talking about this video. Now, it's only a 4-second video, and I'm unsure of the full context. However, while you're watching it, remember that pro-Palestinian folks actually occupied some of Columbia's campus grounds and offices, and they were assaulting Jewish students for 3 or 4 months before it started to calm down. So remember, they all did that, and I'm not sure which university professors were suspended. So the video is going to run twice. I'm not even sure what he said, but so take a look.
Right now, we are not okay. Right now, we are not okay.
So he was not only suspended, but if you read that last part, we see that he will have to take some behavior training before he can come back to the campus. Now I'm going to show you another video of a 1-year anniversary of the rape and pillage of Israel. Some Israeli students at Columbia, quite understandably, wanted to show honor to their countrymen, and they were going to stand in silence, wrapping themselves in their flag. And here is how the radical leadership of Columbia University, with their trained activists, responded. Some young Jews simply wanted to mourn the death of their brethren. And who knows, they may have lost actual friends and family. The radical administration allowed radical activists to shove the deaths of 1,200 Israelis and the kidnapping of hundreds more right into their face. How heartless do you have to be to both approve of the protest and or participate in it? President Trump was exactly right to warn America about the enemy within. I remember back in 2016 when he warned America that the media was the enemy of the people. How right he was then and how right he is now. We have sick, radical lunatics running our universities and classrooms with one simple mission: develop and train activists. Their mission is fully supported by the sick, radical lunatics in the DNC. University professors are giving almost all of their political donations to the politicians who are providing both credibility and cover to the universities and, by extension, the radical activist students. And think about this. If Harris and her Dems win next month, college tuition will be free. The sick radical lunatics are trying to build a pipeline for children to be processed, trained, and unleashed into our nation's businesses, communities, and homes. The enemy within is on the edge of victory. There's one thing stopping them: Donald Trump. If we can elect Trump, we can stop them from their lunacy and hate. Vote for Trump like our nation depended upon it. Take care.